Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar. And welcome to our first ever fantasy draft special show. For all of you, those of you who are slightly more observant, you'll recognise that it's not Mark to my right on the screen. It's Bully News's editor in chief, Rune Gerjuf. Rune, welcome back to the show. You're okay this evening?
Thank you. I'm very good.
Excellent stuff. So obviously, Rune, we're doing the show today to kickstart our fantasy football program because Over the Bar and wrong one. Of course, in partnership with yourself. So Bully News, the website. So for anyone who doesn't know Rune, he appeared on our show last season. Rune is the editor in chief of bullynews.com. Obviously, a fantastic English-speaking website that covers the Bundesliga and, as it happens, covers Bundesliga fantasy football. So Rune is kind of in charge of doing all sorts of useful links and kind of articles in relation to Bundesliga fantasy football. So hence, it made sense for us to link up and have this partnership. So we're very happy to have Rune on the show today and have him going forward on a lot of our shows, on our Thursday shows, where we'll be previewing obviously the matches to come, and we'll do some kind of hints and tips as we go along to help you guys pick your teams. Unfortunately, no Mark this evening. He is elsewhere, so unfortunately he's not with us tonight. But nevertheless, we've got Rune, so the expert is in the house, so that's the main thing that counts. So before we kind of crack on and actually go through the teams and actually pick, so we're going to do a team each, and myself and Rune, and then if you guys agree or disagree, by all means shout up. We'll try and give you some good hints and tips, or Rune will anyway. I'm not sure if anyone will want to copy my team. But anyway, so without further ado, Rune, do you want to just kind of introduce the game as a whole, the fantasy football? Kind of any kind of key differences that you kind of know and kind of might be slightly different to, say, the English ones, like the Sky Sports one, for example. So I'll leave you to explain.
Yeah, I'll just go through a bit of the things to know before creating your team. If it's your first team, then you have a 150 million budget, and you're picking 15 players. So 11 starters and 4 on the bench, and you will be able to make changes during the match day. So say Bayern and Gladbach play this Friday, then you'll be able to switch out the players from Bayern and Gladbach in your side on Saturday and Sunday in between the games. So it makes sense to pick players from different games, different teams, and in order to be able to make changes during the match day, because that can be really helpful. Another thing that you have to know before creating a team is there's the star player system, which means you get to pick one star player per position, and you'll be able to change that star player throughout the match day. So if I star Robert Lewandowski and I'm not really satisfied with his performance, and I want to bet on someone else who plays later in that match day, then I can switch my star player to Erling Haaland, for instance, or Andre Silva, wherever I got in my team, and it's the same the other positions. So yeah, that star player will earn double amount of points, multiply on points. So that's quite an important feature as well to be wary about. Then between each match day, you have 3 transfers to make, up to 3 transfers. You don't have to make them, but you have that opportunity. So that's a good way of like tweaking your team. If someone hasn't performed, then you'll be able to switch them out. Also, there are a few international breaks and periods where you'll be able to make as many transfers as you want. And the first one is coming after match day 3, which means that when picking your team, you only have to plan ahead to match day 3, because afterwards you can change your whole team if you want to. So that's also an important thing to know. So it's about looking at match day 1, 2, and 3, and the match days ahead in the beginning.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything else in particular, Rune, to raise for anyone that's either a newcomer or anything else to watch out for?
One thing maybe, there are a lot of different ways to score points. It's not just about assists or goals. For instance, you have to look at shot involvements like taking and setting up shots, and for defensive players in particular, winning challenges can be really important. So yeah, there are other things to look into when picking a team than just the goals and assists. So you might want to look into the rules if you want to know a bit more details about the other ways of scoring points.
Excellent stuff. So that's obviously a bit of a run through for everyone. Some key information there from Rune. Interesting that obviously you only kind of have to look up to say game week, match week 3, for example, with your team. So me and Rune obviously will go through position by position now, and we'll try and keep an eye on that with regards to maybe who has a slightly easier start potentially to the season. That'll be interesting to see. And then obviously similarly to what people probably know from Sky Sports or fantasy football in general, you kind of get that opportunity for unlimited transfers, which I particularly like during the international break. It's interesting that you're able to make changes day by day. I don't think that's something that's common with, certainly not Sky Sports, which is one I do in England. So yeah, that is particularly interesting to be able to do. So it's certainly about keeping on the ball if you want to be particularly successful each weekend, and using your transfers accordingly, or your subspends rather accordingly. So anyway, we shall crack on, and obviously we shall start with the goalkeepers. So just to kick things off, you're allowed 2 goalkeepers in your squad. That's right, isn't it, Rune? 2 goalkeepers.
Yeah, that's right.
Obviously to have one on the bench. So in general, Rune, when you've done this in the past, do you try to kind of go for 2 kind of averagely priced goalkeepers who are okay, or do you try and go for one, star keeper, for example, a Neuer price with someone who's quite cheap? So what would you usually go about doing?
There are different ways of approaching this. I mean, it's obviously a good idea to have 2 starting goalkeepers in your squad, even though you can only field one at the time, because, as I said, you will be able to switch between matches. But then, of course, you have to pick 2 keepers who aren't playing at the same time for that to make sense. Otherwise, you can just go with 1 keeper that you know will be starting, and then just buy one for 1 million as a second choice goalkeeper in order to free up funds for expensive assets at other positions. I mean, that's like the 2 ways of going about this. In general, I'd say it's rarely worth breaking the bank for a premium goalkeeper, because goalkeepers rack up a lot of points from saving shots. So Manuel Neuer wasn't the player who picked up most points last season. That was actually Bielefeld Stefan Ortega, because he made a lot of saves and was a lot more involved than Neuer was. So it's about actually finding players who you trust to keep clean sheets. Of course, that's a good thing, but saving shots is actually just as important. So in general, I wouldn't recommend like spending real big on a goalkeeper. Even if you just buy one, then buy one at least who you will know will make some saves and like be in action more than the likes of Neuer and Gulaschi and from the top teams who might not make that many saves.
Bro, so you're kind of saying that clean sheets are probably might not get you as many points as, say, a keeper that's going to be involved a lot. So maybe, for example, from last season, Stefan Ortega. Naturally, I think his price has probably skyrocketed. I don't know what his price was last season, but he's currently sitting on 8 million, obviously out of your 150 million budget. That's the 7th most expensive keeper, so presumably he's shot up a fair bit there, Rune.
Yeah. He's more expensive this year, but deservedly so. I'd say he was by far the best goalkeeper to have in the team last season. As far as I remember, the second one was Florian Müller playing. He played for Freiburg last season on loan from Mainz, but he has now joined Stuttgart, and he's priced at 8 million as well.
Interesting stuff, right? Well, shall we crack on and do our picks? So we'll just take it in turns. So I'll go first, and I'll probably be made to look silly by Rune when he does his picks. So obviously looking at it, and based on what Rune said, you've got kind of the likes of Cohen Casteels, the Wolfsburg goalkeeper, Manuel Neuer, and maybe Peter Galacci, who are behind what we'd maybe describe as the best defences in the league, roughly speaking. So if you're looking for clean sheets, they might be the ones to go for. I think I'm kind of erring between Ortega and Luther from Union Berlin as my regular keeper, but I think given how important Ortega was last season to Bielefeld, I will start with him. So Stefan Ortega will be my first pick. So Arun, over to you. Who's going to be yours?
I've gone for Stefan Ortega at the moment in my draft as well. Because, as you said, he was really important last season. And I think if you're going for just one goalkeeper, he looks like the best option. If you're going for two starting goalkeepers, then I would probably look elsewhere. But personally, I think I will start with the choice of just picking one starting goalkeeper and one cheap one that won't play.
Interesting stuff. Okay, so Rune's probably going to go down the line of taking Ortega as his starting goalkeeper and then not really wasting much money elsewhere, which probably is the way to go. I'm just kind of going through all the cheaper keepers now and kind of the backup ones. So I think as my second choice, Rune's influence is working on me. So I'm going to pick Fabian Bredlow of VfB Stuttgart as my reserve goalkeeper. See, he's only 2 million. Unlikely to start many games, but obviously they've lost Gregor Kobel, but they did sign the aforementioned Muller, who was with Freiburg and has now come over from parent club Mainz. So I expect him to play or start as the first choice keeper for Stuttgart, but you never know, just in case for a cheap one. So I've gone for Fabian Bredlow as my reserve keeper. So Rune, who have you picked for keeper number 2?
I went with Penke from Hoffenheim because he costs 1 million. That's the only real explanation. Could be anyone priced at 1 million.
Very tactical. Well, I'm sure you know your stuff more than I do. So,
but a few important things to say about this. The official DNL Twitter profile, which is a very good source for fantasy Bundesliga stuff, created a spreadsheet or table consisting of all the cheap goalkeepers and the mid-price goalkeepers. And if you look at that table, you will be able to see how many times they will appear at the same time during the first 3 match days. So, for instance, if you look at the table, it's clear that Robin Sentner and Andreas Lude, or Timo Horn and Andreas Lude, will be the combination to go for if you want 2 goalkeepers who play at separate times in all 3 of the first match days. So definitely worth keeping an eye on that profile and on that table if you're looking to sign 2 goalkeepers that you want to switch between during the first 3 match days.
Yeah, that's interesting. Absolutely. Certainly have to be on the ball to be able to do that, won't you? So we shall see how that works. But for the moment, it looks like me and Rune have just gone for a strong keeper to start most of our games. So moving on to defenders. So again, we can have 5 defenders in our squads. So this is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting, and there's probably going to be a lot more kind of different players flowing throughout our league. So Rune, do you want to just kind of briefly talk us through the kind of the go-to tactics with defenders? Obviously, presumably it's similar to what we do in the English fantasy leagues and try and get defenders who are almost wing backs who get lots of assists and goals, or players that take set pieces, or indeed big centre backs who can get goals. And guessing that's kind of the main thinking behind most of them.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same. I'd say wing backs or offensively oriented wing backs are probably even more important in fantasy Bundesliga than in the FPL. So I haven't really looked that much at center backs. If you're going to pick center backs, then they have to be really like really big goal threats. Like Mats Hummels picked up a lot of points last season from scoring goals, but yeah, you've got to like hit 6, 7, 8 goals, something like that as a center back to like really be worth paying a lot of money for. Otherwise, I think that you're probably best off with wing backs, or sometimes even defenders playing out of position in midfield. There's also a few of them.
Yeah. So would you say that you would usually go for a mix of centre backs and kind of fullbacks in your squad, or would you necessarily maybe just fill it with 5 wing backs who are essentially always going to be, getting up and down the pitch and often being involved in goals and assists and things like that?
It depends, but at the moment I'm leaning towards only picking fullbacks or wingbacks because of the things I mentioned earlier, that there are so many ways of picking up points in this game. Then they're really likely to be involved in shots, like setting up shots, for instance, and taking shots. Also, they are just as capable of winning challenges as center backs are. So I think there's a lot that there are a lot of things that speaks for wingbacks as a rule of thumb.
Stuff. So again, as you've heard, all the main kind of ins and outs of who to pick. So just kind of looking at a few players now with regards to fullbacks. You've got the likes of Angelino, Rafa Guerrero, Jonas Souza, who had a fantastic season with Stuttgart last season. Mbabu will get forward for you plenty. And another fullback who might not be as maybe as popular, but I think would probably get quite a lot of points based on his performances last season, would be Trimmel of Union Berlin as well. So we'll take it in turns from 1 to 5 to pick our defenders. So my first pick is probably going to be my most expensive and best chance of getting lots of points. And I am going to go for Angelino to start with. So a fair bit out of my transfer budget, but I feel like I need at least one kind of big name in there. So over to you, Rune, to pick your number 1 defender.
Yeah, I went with Angelino as well. I think with both Rafael Guerrero and Alphonso Davies, like in a race against time to get fit, they've both been struggling with injuries in preseason. I think Angelino is the guy you want to go for if you want to spend really big on a defender. And as we all know, he's just amazing, going up and down that left back. And I don't think that will change under Jesse Marsch. I think he will be just as influential for Leipzig. So yeah, safe pick, I'd say.
Yeah, good stuff. So great minds think alike, obviously. Comment is coming from Sidhant Garg. So I've not seen your name before there, Sidhant. So hopefully maybe you're already in Rune's Fantasy League and you've just joined onto the chat. But welcome along. And Sidhant has suggested Hinteregger if anyone is interested in picking up a centre-back. So that's also a very, very sensible recommendation and tip. So I think my second pick is going to be a centre-back who hasn't, by the looks of it, has not been picked much. And he's a Gladbach centre-back in the shape of Nico Elvedi. He got some useful goals towards the end of the season for Gladbach, and in a refreshed and rejuvenated side, I think he could be quite useful. So he's pick number 2 for me, and he was 10 mil. So that's 24 mil spent on defenders so far for me. Rune, on to you.
Yeah, my second pick is Borna Sosa, that you spoke of earlier. Yeah, he had a really amazing last season, setting up goals for Kalaitis in particular. Kalaitis, unfortunately, is injured at the moment, or he's out with COVID-19, and he's unlikely to be fit for the opener. But still, he will probably start game number 2, and I think Sosa will be just as good as last season. He provided a lot of assists and is very involved offensively. And he also proved that he can pick up points even against the stronger sides in the league. So he's a player that you can keep for a long time, not just for Stuttgart's opener against quite a Fürth that is quite tasty, I'd say. One of the easier openers for a team. So yeah, Borna Sosa is my second pick.
Yeah, Good stuff. His link-up play with Sasa Kalajdzic was particularly impressive last season. The deadly duo alongside Andre Silva and Kostic. However, that partnership won't be happening this season, unfortunately. So my third pick, I'm probably going to go for a less well-known player and a slightly cheaper option just to kind of level things off for me financially. So I picked out Armel Bella Kotchap. So for those of you who don't really know the name, it's a name that came up in our first video of the season when looking at the new teams. So he's a Bochum player. He plays at centre-back. He's a young player as well. Who has been given a lot of responsibility very early on in his career. And I feel like out of the two newly promoted teams, Bochum might be slightly more defensively sound. But again, as a newly promoted team, by the sounds of it, Rune, they'll obviously be involved in getting, tackles and potentially headers and kind of interceptions and these sort of things where you get points for. So, yeah, my third pick is the young and very cheap at 5 mil, Armel Bella Kotchap. So, Rune, pick number 3 for you.
Yeah, my third pick is Jerome Roussillon from Wolfsburg, priced at 7 million. He didn't play a lot last season, kind of had a dip in form, and lost his place to Paulo Otavio, who was a really good fantasy Bundesliga player last season. But at the moment, Otavio is out injured, so Roussillon looks pretty set to start down the left-hand side for Wolfsburg. And in the past, he's proven his worth as a fantasy asset. He had a pretty good 2018-19 campaign, which saw him impress a lot, also show a lot of attacking prowess. So I think 7 million is a fair price, a good price for a player like Roussillon who we know can do well when he's on his game.
Good stuff. Okay, pick number 4 for me is going to be a player that's new to the league and the division, so maybe a bit of a risky one. But I've gone for fullback Mitchell Bakker, obviously formerly of PSG, who has come into Bayer Leverkusen. He's priced at 7 mil at the moment, so I think that's fairly good value for the player. He impressed me on the occasions where I saw him last season for PSG, played quite a lot in the Champions League. I think he even played against my club, Man United. So I got to see quite a lot of him. So I think not only is he a bargain in this fantasy football, I think that Leverkusen have done some fantastic business there for him to get him for quite a reasonable amount of money from PSG. So, yeah, I expect him to settle in nicely to this league. He got forward quite well as far as I remember. So certainly for now, he's going to go into my team. So that's pick number 4 for me. Back over to you, Rune.
Yeah, my fourth pick is Danny da Costa from Frankfurt. He spent the last season out on loan at Mainz and actually got a lot of playing time under Bo Svensson after joining Mainz. And now he's back at Frankfurt and seems like he'll get the nod on the right-hand side at the right wing-back position ahead of Erik Durm. And at 5 million, I think he offers a lot in that wing-back position. Da Costa is also a pretty well-known fantasy asset, especially before he had a kind of like a dip in form last season under Hütter. But I think at 5 million, that's a very good price for a player like Da Costa, especially if he can like rediscover his best form at Frankfurt.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, last picks then for this round of players. Sidhant has very correctly said that Bakker might not actually start the first game, but he's still an exciting player. So yeah, let's hope so. Well, let's hope he starts the first game for my sake. If he's in my first 11, that is. The next one I'm slightly umming and ahhing about. I've looked at a young player in the shape of another Leverkusen fullback, Emmanuel Frimpong. He's obviously he's come over from Celtic and gets forward quite a lot. And given some of the injury concerns, I think I've heard that he might even start on the wing at the weekend, potentially for for Leverkusen. So that's obviously potential if you maybe want to throw him in there for one game if you can get forward and get some goals and assists. But other than that, I think it might be a bit of a risky maneuver. So my fifth pick is going to be the ever reliable Christopher Trimmel. I think based on the way that Union played last year, I thought not only did they actually develop into quite a good ball playing side and they got forward with pace, I think they obviously relied a lot on set pieces and his delivery was particularly key to that. Again, only 5% of people have picked the defender in their team. He's priced at 10 mil, so he's not a cheap defender. So I might have to tinker with things later on in the video if I'm struggling financially. But yeah, he's my defender for now. So Rune, your last pick?
Yeah, my last pick is Stuttgart's Atakan Karaso, priced at only 3 million. He's one of the cheapest starting options, I think. He's a natural center back, but actually looks like he will play as a central midfielder. He's kind of defensively oriented, but nevertheless, he'll play a bit further forward and cost just 3 million. It looks like he will start until Owal Mangala is back. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I guess he could be a great way to like free up funds elsewhere at the beginning of this game. He started recently in the DFB Pokal and was singled out for praise afterwards by Pellegrino Matarazzo, the Stuttgart coach. So he should certainly keep his spot.
Good stuff. Yeah, that sounds like a very good pick, financially speaking, for the purpose of this fantasy draft. So moving on to slightly further up the pitch, we're on to midfielders, and obviously a lot of this kind of depends on who is defined as a midfielder. Obviously, the fantasy kind of system will define who we can actually pick, me and Rune. Again, goes without saying from your midfielders, you want goals and you want assists. This is where most players are, kind of looking at that north of 10 million sort of price tag. So again, you can pick 5 midfielders. So, Rune, anything else that you want to add there in regards to what you're looking for from your midfield?
No, actually not. I mean, yeah, you're looking at those that are involved offensively. Makes a lot of sense. Some attacking like wingers are listed as forwards in the game. So it's about finding those who play in offensive positions that are actually listed as midfielders, and about maybe finding someone who actually plays up front despite being listed as a midfielder. It's also a good thing to look out for.
Yeah, very good. So I think there's a couple of names that kind of strike out, pardon me, that in terms of their value, they're quite high price, but at the same time, they might be ones that could be worth avoiding to start with. So again, this is just purely my opinion. So the first few that I'm looking at is Filip Kostic. Obviously, superb season last season. He's down as 14 mil on obviously on the app, on the fantasy football. So that's a good chunk of money. 18% of people have picked him again, which is absolutely understandable. But I think without his partner in crime, Andre Silva, those assists might dip slightly. Obviously, Frankfurt were the victims of, the DFB Pokal curse. So they got knocked out. So maybe not off the flashiest start. So maybe Kostic will struggle a little bit. But again, maybe I'm clutching at straws a little bit. The other one, maybe to look out for, and obviously a big name in England, is Jude Bellingham. Bellingham has had an outstanding season last season, really broke out, in the England squad for the Euros. Has an all-round game, but I just don't think that Dortmund quite know how to use him yet. So with that in mind, I'm not sure how much he'll get forward. So I'm purely thinking goals and assists. I know Bellingham breaks up play brilliantly. He's got legs. He'll run all day for you. He'll certainly play a lot of minutes, which will get you points. So, but he's still 11 mil. So for me, just for now, I'm going to avoid him. So my first pick is going to be when I find him. There he is. Similarly, 11 mil, and not many people have picked him again, but I like to go off field a little bit. I'm going for Daichi Kamada, superb operator at Frankfurt last season, lots of assists, and started to pick up his goals as well towards the end of the season. So he's pick number 1 for me. So Rune, over to you.
Yeah, I've gone with Costas, who you mentioned before. At 14 million, he was the highest scoring midfielder last season. And as you said, he might be missing Silva a bit. Need to find new teammates, new targets to set up assists for. But I think what he did last season was so impressive that I'm sure he will find someone else to create space and assist for. Also, playing as a wing back, he both makes interceptions and gains points that way, and he makes assists and sets up shots. He gets a lot forward up the pitch. So at the moment, he's in my side, despite their quite disappointing loss in the DFB Pokal that you mentioned.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, there you go. Obviously, that's probably the first time that we've generally gone in opposite directions so far, Rune. So there you go. There's a bit of difference there. So my second pick, again, some of the names I've kind of looked out for are ones that are going to give you obviously steady points throughout the season, but aren't gonna break the bank. So my next pick, again, if I can find him, is going to be, well, I'll name him anyway before I find him. I'm going to go for Baumgartner. Obviously, a very, very accomplished and young player. Gets forward lots, and apart from Andre Kramaric, is generally speaking the man to go to in terms of goals and assists at Hoffenheim. So, well, I think, generally speaking, that's about right, really. Obviously, Kramaric was in the goals again this weekend for his side. So I shall go for, Baumgartner. So, Rune, over to you. Who's your second pick?
My second pick is another expensive guy, Christopher Nkunku from RB Leipzig, also priced at 14 million. He also had a very good last season and picked up a lot of points, despite rotating a lot, being substituted a lot towards the end of games. At this point, he looks set to get a lot of playing time from the start of the season, especially since Dani Olmo will be coming back from holiday a bit later, I think, after playing both at the Euros and at the Olympics. And Nkunku has looked really sharp in pre-season, most recently scored and set up a goal in Leipzig's quite convincing 4-0 victory over Sandhausen in the Pokal. So I'm expecting a lot from Nkunku this season.
Good stuff. My next pick, I am going to go for someone, again, slightly cheaper to allow room for some more expensive players later on. And, well, we're getting into it now, so there won't be too much more to go through. I'm going to go for Tanguy Koulibaly, and that's of VfB Stuttgart, the young winger / kind of forward. Very exciting, very raw. Again, is very reasonable, 7 mil. And I think it could be a breakout season for the striker. Obviously, still no Silas. Obviously, for obvious reasons. Nico Gonzalez has left the club. So there is a bit of room up there for them to play him, obviously alongside Sasa Kalajdzic as a target man. So he's going to be my cheaper option as a midfielder. So Rune, we're on to pick number 3. That's the one, yeah.
I've went with another guy from Stuttgart, and that's Mateo Klimovic. He only managed to score once in the Bundesliga last season, despite really creating opportunities and showing a lot of promise. Probably he was lagging a bit of clinicality. He wasn't clinical enough in front of goal. But there seems no doubt that he will only get better with time, and I think he has shown a lot of promise. And at the 7 million, the way I see it, he looks set to start from the start of the season for Stuttgart. I read that Koulibaly is maybe a doubt for the first game, actually. I think Förster and Klimovic will get the 2 spots behind the lone striker for Stuttgart. Förster is priced 1 million cheaper than Klimovic, actually, but I think Klimovic can really explode if he gets off to a good start. And he recently scored in the DFB Pokal, so he should take a bit of confidence from that, I think.
Good stuff. Right, picks number 4 for us both now. I'm going to go back up to the higher end of the prices. And for me, I'm in an R in between the two Bayern players. So the two midfield generals in the shape of Joshua Kimmich and Leon Goretzka. And I probably will go with Goretzka. I know there's been a lot of chat about his contract, and there's been a bit of miscommunication about it, but it now seems like he probably will sign on the dotted line and commit his future to the club. I think that was probably never really in doubt, but there's always whispers, aren't there? But hopefully that will mean he gets his head down and continues along this trajectory that he's on, which is completely, sky high. He's now, not only was he kind of like this unit of a strong man who kind of broke up play and had a good pass on him. He's added goals. He's added a real all round game to their midfield and makes him a nice pick at £14 million. Hopefully he'll get even more goals this season. So yeah, he slots into my team quite nicely. So Rune, pick number 4 for you.
Yeah, my pick number 4 is Goretzka as well. And like you, I was really considering whether to go with him or Kimmich, because they're both really good in a fantasy sense. Goretzka is obviously playing a bit further forward the pitch, going a bit like box to box more than Kimmich, but Kimmich takes sets pieces and gets a lot of points from that. Still, Goretzka is 1 million cheaper, and like you, I have the feeling that he will be involved a lot in goals and assists and shots in that box-to-box role. Also, he had quite bad luck with injuries last season, I think. So,
yeah.
So maybe if he can stay off some of those injuries, then maybe he can do even better this season.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah, good stuff. Both gone for Goretzka there as pick 4. My final pick is going to be Vincenzo Grifo of Freiburg. I think he's probably a name that we just kept on repeating on and on last season when we were covering Freiburg games, myself and Mark. A very, very impressive player, heavily linked with everything that Freiburg do well at the top end of the pitch. Very capable of scoring goals, but of course assisting them as well. So for me, he's going to start a lot of games. He's going to get a lot of football and be involved in most of the good things that Freiburg do. So he is going to go into my squad. So your final pick for a midfielder, Rune.
My final pick is a bit of a bargain player. I've gone with Jan Thielmann from FC Köln or Cologne, priced at 4 million. Listed as a midfielder in the game, but he's expected to start up front alongside Anthony Modeste. And I think with the price of just 4 million, you can't really go wrong with him. Köln has an okay opener against Hertha, as far as I remember, and then they're facing Bayern, which isn't that nice. But but after that, I think they have Bochum in the third game.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Earlier, yeah. So, yeah, maybe you can. I would be able to swap out Tillman after the first match day in order not to have him in my squad for the Bayern game. Otherwise, I can just keep him for the Bochum game, depending on how well he does in the opener.
Good stuff. There's a few other names that rung out to me in midfield that would have been good bargains that I may have to come back to if I don't have enough money for my star strikers. Jean-Paul Botius, I think, spoke to me. I think he's at 7 mil. I think he could be a good player. He is often involved in how well Mainz recovered last season under Bo Svensson, and they were particularly impressive going forward, I thought, and really opened teams up. So he could be a good one. Julian Green of Firth, he won't be a name that many people are aware of. He scored in their DFB Pokal game. I can't remember if they lost now, actually, Firth. I think
they lost.
They might have been one that fell by the wayside. And Lee, who is now a Mainz player also, who's come from Holstein Kiel. So he could also be useful, very energetic midfielder, so could get you loads of those kind of bonus points. So I might go for one of those 3 if I need to make room in my budget. For of course, the very exciting top end of the pitch, we're on to our forwards. So this obviously the big money. Obviously, we know what we want from our forwards, don't we? We want goals galore. We want them to be playing regularly, and that's about as simple as it is, really. Rune, I'm sure you won't want to add much more than that, but is there any other ways that forwards can get extra bonus points?
No, I mean it's the same as the other positions. Obviously, this game is about more than goals, but of course that's the most important thing when you're considering a striker. I think some forwards are better at racking up points in other ways than just scoring goals. I mean, looking at last season, Erling Haaland was getting most of his points from scoring, and yeah, he's pretty good at that. But in other departments, he didn't pick up that many points actually. Then there are other strikers who get their points from doing other things as well. So yeah, obviously goals are most important, but there are other factors to consider as well, just as with the other positions.
Absolutely. So you're allowed 3 forwards, and I think most people's tactics are obviously going to be to play a formation which allows you to have those 3 forwards in the team most weeks. And that'll probably be my idea, but less of that for now. So my first pick, I think me and Rune are probably going to be aligned on these ones until I run out of money, that is. So I'll take certain Mr. Lewandowski as my first pick for rather obvious reasons. Yeah, record breaker, goals guaranteed, has a good history with not being injured, but of course he was injured for a decent proportion of last season and still broke the goals record, amazingly enough. So if he has a clean season, then yeah, it's just going to be silly. So yeah, he's my first pick. Rune, who is yours?
Yeah, Lewandowski as well. I think he's one of the few must-have players in the game that you just need to have. No matter if he's expensive, then yeah, he was by far the top scoring player last season with all his goals. So you can't really avoid having him in your team, I think. Also, I just want to add one thing you said about formations. Actually, you're able to change formations during the match day as well. So you can change your formation based on how your forwards have been doing. I mean, if you have Haaland in your side and he didn't have a good game, then you can swap him out and change the formation and put in a midfielder or a defender instead. Just a little thing to add.
Excellent stuff. Well, there you go. That's a nice, cool addition to the game. I think that's quite nice to be able to do that. So moving on to our next picks. Again, this one's probably going to be most obvious again in the game. So pick number 2 for me, forward-wise, is Erling Haaland at 16 mil. So he is the second most expensive player on the game. Yeah, highly picked, just 1% below Lewandowski so far at 71% of people have been picking Haaland. Going from strength to strength as a player, obviously bagged 3 in the Pokal just to get himself warmed up for the first few games of the season. I think this could well be the season where he pushes Lewandowski as hard as he's been pushed for a while for top goal scorer, I think. So yeah, again, it just makes sense. There's plenty of rumours around him, but I can't think Haaland's going anywhere this season. So yeah, complete sense to me. So Haaland is my second pick. Rune, over to you.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Rory. I've also gone with Haaland, and I think it's amazing what he has done at the age of just 21, nearly averaged a goal per game in the Bundesliga, and he will probably only get better from season to season. So yeah, for me, he's a must-have as well.
Fantastic stuff. So this is probably where it's going to tell that Rune has been saving his money up quite nicely, and I have been spending it rather more carefree. So if I was to do that, I'd only have 6 million left, which is quite silly of me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out one of my midfielders. So I've decided to take out Baumgartner for now anyway at 11 mil and free up some money at the top end of the pitch. And obviously the list is endless with players that kind of guarantee you goals in the Bundesliga. So we've got the likes of Andre Silva, Thomas Muller is down as a forward. Of course, he'll get assists aplenty. Weghorst, obviously the already mentioned Kramaric, will Patrick Schick have a good season as well. Lots of interesting names out there. maybe a couple of new names to look at is the likes of Borussia Dortmund's latest recruit, Daniel Malen. He looks like a very exciting player, and a name that people will be familiar with is Stefan Jovetic of Hertha Berlin as well. So he could be a bit of a risky pick based on that. So I'll probably have to fiddle around with mine a little bit more. So we'll go on to you, Rune, to do your third pick to start with.
Yeah, my third pick is another like blockbuster pick, André Silva from RB Leipzig, priced at 15 million. As you said, Roy, I've been saving up my money to get Silva in as well. And I've been kind of considering whether he's worth the money, or whether it makes sense to like wait and see how he does in this new setting and his new team. But I think with the service that he will surely be getting at Leipzig, he will score goals, and I think they've been lacking goals, and they don't really have other like true goal scorers. So it's I can only see him like doing well at Leipzig. I've also been considering Weghorst, priced at 1 million lower, but I just think that I have more confidence in Leipzig and in their ability to score goals. So it's got to be Silva. But if I am to mention a few bargain picks or lower price picks, I would suggest. I know Mainz have a quite difficult opener against Leipzig, but then they have some quite manageable fixtures, not the worst fixtures. And I think Jonathan Burkhardt could be a player to consider, priced at 6 million. He scored a few goals in the Pokal the other day, and he also missed a ton of opportunities. But Mainz have sold a few strikers. Quaison has left the club. Mateta left the club fairly recently, and also they have Onisiwu out with COVID-19. So Burkhardt looks pretty like a lock in their lineup. And if he can get off to a good start, then I think 6 million is. Then he might be worth a shot. Another player at the same price is Davy Selke. I know he hasn't been doing well for the past few seasons, but he might get a bit of a revival at Hertha. I think he had a quite good preseason, scoring a lot of goals, and he has been like praised by Hertha coach Paul Dardai, and looks set to start up front for them. So at 6 million, he might be worth a shot. If we go 1 million up, we have the new Frankfurt striker Rafael Bohr, priced at 7 million. I also think he might be worth a punt, with Kostic swinging in crosses towards him, and it depends on how he will do in his new league, and like stepping up to the Bundesliga. But 7 million isn't too bad for him, I think.
Good stuff. So yeah, that's our main fantasy draft done. I will be probably editing my team into the early hours of the evening, just to make sure I can probably also get in the aforementioned Andre Silva. He would be my ideal third striker to partner Haaland and Lewandowski as well. So I'll have to get to work on that. So the key lesson is make sure you listen to Rune fully and not me. Basically rewatch it, make sure you listen to all his hints and tips. Going for a solid keeper and one that's really cheap, I think, is a really good bit of advice. Actually, that does free up money. I was considering kind of going 50-50, so that's a very good one. And always watch out for those bargain players for sure. So obviously we'll make sure that we get ourselves entered into the league, which I already am. My team's in there. So if you're new to the show or the video, basically just go onto the Bundesliga website. It'll be obvious there to click on Fantasy Football, or download the app on your phone. I believe it is called BL Fantasy, so Bundesliga Fantasy. Get it downloaded and then get yourself involved. If you go onto the leagues, very easy to find us. The league is titled Bully News and Over the Bar. We currently have 302 members, and that's improved from 270 on last season. So the league is ever growing. So it's obviously a really big community. So hopefully people can get involved. As obviously is the whole point in this partnership, is that Rune will be appearing with regularity now on our Thursday shows. So he'll be in to to give weekly or bi-weekly, depends on Rune's availability, kind of who's hot, who's not, best players to bench, best players to play ahead of each match week. And if Rune isn't available, we'll be able to use his fantastic website, bullynews.com, to look at all the different articles that they bring out, which they have a weekly kind of, basically who's hot and who is not, to bring in. Easy for me to say. So yeah, fantastic stuff, Rune. Really enjoyed that. I've learned a lot already in these 50 minutes. I've learned not to splash the cash too early on. So yeah, we'll see how my team goes. We'll make sure that we update you guys each week on where we are in the league. So obviously, get involved, see if you can win, see if you can beat me and Mark, see if you can beat Rune. He's probably going to be the hardest one to beat. If I come inside the top 100, I'll be happy, I reckon. So yeah, it'll be interesting stuff to see how we all get on. But anyway, Rune, thank you for joining us this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure. We look forward to having you back on shows to come in the next few weeks.
Yeah, thank you, Roy. It's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to our continued partnership as well.
Excellent stuff. So yeah, that's the end of our live show this evening. The next show that we will be doing, we'll be back with our first season match review, of course, with the Bundesliga starting this Friday. Me and Mark will be back to review all the action. So we'll be getting stuck into that. So really looking forward to the action starting this weekend. Even happier that Sky Sports have actually picked up the rights in the UK to play some games, because that was quite worrying at first. So just in case you don't know, Sky Sports have picked up the rights in England for the next 4 years, I think. So that'll be interesting. But other than that, really looking forward to the next few episodes. So we'll be back on Monday night. Make sure you hit subscribe if you're new to the channel, if you haven't already. Hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Whack a like on it if you liked it. Make sure you drop some comments on any thoughts on what we've done this evening, best players, and obviously please do get involved in the league. Other than that, if you don't already know about us, just search for us on Twitter. We are at OverTheBarFB. And also, of course, on Twitter, look out for Bully News. Of course, just search for them and you'll find them and give them a follow. And our main piece de resistance is www.otbfootball.net. So make sure you check out that. Make sure you check out the League One show. The League Two show is very new as well. So it's all going on the channel. So we appreciate your support and we shall see you next time. So many thanks. Cheers all.
Bye.